With headline after headline coming out seemingly every month of studio layoffs, rushed games being released early with piss poor quality, and developers taking forever to implement positive changes into a game because of the numerous layers of management and bureaucratic red tape that they inevitably have to go through to approve a simple gameplay adjustment, it was such a breath of fresh air to read this article from Jason Schreier on why it took 7 years for Hollow Knight Silksong to come out. I know that it has long been a meme that this game will never come out, but I didn't know the whole backstory of when it was announced or anything. I didn't know the true origins of the meme, so I did some digging. On Valentine's Day in 2019, Team Cherry, the developers of Hollow Knight, released a trailer for Hollow Knight Silksong, as well as a video from 2 of the developers just talking about Silksong. They talk about how it was initially planned to be a DLC for Hollow Knight, but as the ideas flowed and the scope of the project grew, they knew that they had to turn it into its own game. So this was not a typical game industry delay where you have visions change time and time again and the studio doesn't actually start working on the final product until like a year out from release. Anthem has a development hell story that fits this bill, as does the yet to be released Marathon from Bungie, which initially was scheduled for 2024 and then September 2025, and now it's delayed to 2026 because the game still needs a lot of work. But by all accounts, that is not the case with Silksong. The reason this game took so long is that the developers just truly love what they are working on. They're so passionate about it, and you can just tell from their quotes in Jason's article. I will have a link to the full article itself in the description, and you should definitely read it all because it will restore your faith in the games industry. At least it did for me, a little bit. It will remind you that there are still devs out there who care about the art and craft of making video games, people who genuinely enjoy their job and just want to make the best product possible. And that's exactly what Team Cherry is doing here. They mention in the article how they just kept thinking of cool ideas that they wanted to implement and then they would. Ari Gibson at one point said that if he didn't stop drawing, that the game would take 15 years to finish. So they do not lack ideas or passion. No, they simply have too many, and at a certain point, they just had to rein themselves in so that they could complete their project. They talk about how they truly did think that it would come out later that year in like 2022 and 2023, but then things would just crop up and happen. The creative process would take over and they would implement more cool new systems into the game. At one point, they spoke about how everything comes together very quickly, that they can see results extremely fast, and that's obviously very exciting. But that is a testament to the team and how they have stayed so lean so that they can be agile and make good changes to the game so quickly. SkillUp did a wonderful video on the development of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and that was one thing that really stood out to me, how they could pivot on a dime and make a change that they needed very quickly, which only stood to help the game become better. But in these giant studios, everyone is working on different things that some people in one department don't even know how an idea will affect a different part of the game. These studios have become far too bloated, and if people do have good ideas, there is often a horrible manager standing in their way to stifle that idea. Just look at Bungie and the horrible management woes that they have. They have a motto at the company from the head of Destiny that says, "Velocity is more important than quality."
Velocity is more important than position. Like your position is your game's quality right now. How good is it? What issues does it have? How much content does it have to engage your players? And these are all important questions, but so much more important for us now is how fast can you change that position?
And that exact motto has cost the franchise the bulk of their player base. I have a different channel that was dedicated to Destiny 2, and they destroyed the quality of that game so much that I just left it behind, despite having thousands of hours in that game. Because by the end, it was just a bug-riddled mess. Where the developers at Team Cherry are the exact opposite. They know that quality is king. They're still polishing the game just a few weeks out from release. But in the article, they talk about how they would implement a new system, so then they would need to polish it with the other parts of the game that they've already done. You can tell from the article that quality is at the top of their mind. And they even say that the development process was never a struggle or that things were being held up. They were just enjoying the process and adding fun new ideas to the game. So to reiterate, this game was not held up because of some developmental hell. No, it was held up because the creators of the game just truly enjoy what they're working on and have so many ideas that they just want to put them all in the game and make it the best that they can. They've already said that they have planned DLC for the game, which is super freaking awesome, and normally I'm against this. And let me tell you why. If you look at Monster Hunter Wilds, that game released bare bones as hell. First, it was pushed out the door February 28th to satisfy shareholders so that they could have better growth and sales metrics under their 2024 fiscal year. But then the game was unoptimized as hell on PC, and now, 6 months later, it's actually gotten worse. Certain updates have literally made the game worse if that was possible. But if you're on console, well, the game is still lackluster. Sure, it may run better, but there's still very little endgame. They sanded down the rough edges on the game to appeal to a wider market, and you know what? It worked. On Steam, they had over 1 million players at their peak, but as I write this, they only have 17,000 playing. That's a dramatic fall from grace. But they released the game with no endgame content, so once you beat everything, that was it. And yes, some games are designed like that. Most single-player story games, you just play them once and you're done. But Wilds is not that game. It's designed to be a live service, so because of that, they withhold a lot of content. They withhold monsters so that they can trickle them out in title updates to draw players back into the game. So, as I said, a lot of the time, DLC or things of the like are bullshit because they are just features that should have been in the game at launch. But really, it's just an excuse for studios to release a half-finished game because they can fix it later. But not with Silksong. I am confident that we will get a meaty experience packed with fun, cool bosses and tons of hidden secrets. And then when those DLCs do drop, they will also be substantial updates to the game with a lot of content for players to sink their teeth into. Again, you can just tell from the article that these guys are passionate about the game that they're making, and the reason that it took so long is because they want it to be the best game that it can be, not because they lacked motivation or they were trying to incorporate design elements into the game to monetize their player base. So much of modern gaming is tainted by the question of how can we get our players to spend money? But at Team Cherry, they know the answer. People will spend money on a good video game, so that is what they have spent 7 years making. I watched a YouTube video from June 13th, 2019 of Silksong gameplay at Nintendo Treehouse Live. The game was in a playable state back then. It honestly looked really good 6 years ago. So I can't even imagine the level of optimization and polish that the game is going to release with. And I just recently put out a video on Battlefield 6 and how much fun I had playing the beta, but I point out how a big reason for that is because they had all their studios focused on this one game for like 4 years or maybe even longer. And yet the GM of Battlefield has come out saying that they want all those studios working on their own games so that they can follow a yearly release cadence exactly like Call of Duty does. This is the most hyped Battlefield game in many years, hell, maybe ever. And the reason for that is because you put all your studios behind it and took the time necessary to craft a really fun game. And the fucking lesson you're learning from that is to follow COD's lead and rush out half-finished games every year? How is that working for Call of Duty? Well, sadly, it's actually working pretty well as far as sales go because they do sell a shitload of copies. And side note, stop buying that horrific slop, just please stop buying COD. But if you compare it to other COD games and not across the industry as a whole, then you can see that COD sales are slowly slipping. And I pray that Black Ops 7 sells like shit. And I hope if Battlefield follows through on their plans for annualized releases, that it bites them in the ass and they don't sell well either. As for Team Cherry and Hollow Knight Silksong, I hope it sells like gangbusters. Clearly, a ton of time and love has went into this game, so it absolutely deserves it. Team Cherry is doing right by the players, and they deserve all the success they get and more. And I hope other studios wake up and realize that this is the way. Not rushing out games or trying to copy trends and what's the latest hot thing. How's that working out for Bungie with Marathon? Game development timelines are so long these days that you can't capitalize on a trend now. By the time you get your game out, the trend has changed. Look at Marathon. Sure, extraction shooters still have a bit of hype, as we can see with Arc Raiders, but if you're just chasing trends, people will see through it. Marathon is a game devoid of soul and passion. It was made to try and sell copies, not out of love for the genre. Hollow Knight and now the sequel were clearly made out of passion. Again, when I looked into the timelines, I was curious why they announced it so early, but now it makes sense. Everything requires context. This isn't a Bethesda situation with Elder Scrolls 6. Announcing a game in 2018 and now we still have very little to go off of, that was done simply to drum up hype, where with Silksong, it was organic. They wanted it to be a DLC and they're clearly passionate about what they're making, so they wanted to share that passion with their community. So when the plan changed from DLC to a full-fledged release, they were excited to tell their audience. But then that game kept growing and evolving, so it took 6 or more years to make. But the biggest lesson to take away is that is fine. Take all the time you need and release a quality game. People also meme on Rockstar for taking so long with GTA 6, but I will happily wait for that to be the best that it can be. And more people should be fine with this. This dumbass tweet from Caven Dave is the opposite of what we should be pushing. Team Cherry don't owe their fans any explanation, just let them cook. I'm happy that Cyberpunk 2077 turned it around and became an all-time great, but that launch was a horrible disappointment for many people and tarnished CD Projekt Red's reputation. Imagine if they had made it for next-gen only and took all the time that they needed and launched it in the state that it's in today. It would have gone down as one of the greatest video games ever. So, kudos to Team Cherry. Thanks for doing things right for a change. You're a beacon of hope in the hellscape that is modern game development. Also, it was kind of cute how they're sad that the Silksong memes will die now that it is released. They admit that they're killing the fun in that regard, but it was a fun meme while it lasted. Anyways, that's it for the video. Fuck all these game companies that prioritize money over the art of game creation, who make games to milk players instead of to give players a fun and enjoyable experience. Personally, I've been waiting for the Silksong date to drop, as I was planning to play the original Hollow Knight for the first time on stream before it comes out. So this Monday, I'll be streaming Hollow Knight all week until I beat it. I've owned the game for months and I can't wait to dive in. So swing by my Twitch at itstizzle7 and come watch me enjoy an all-time classic of a game. I hope that I love it as much as I think I will. I loved Metroid Dread and I do like platformers, so I'm definitely thinking that I'll like it. And then when that is done, it should be just in time for Silksong, which I'll also be streaming, so I hope to see you there. Comment down below if you are hyped for Silksong, or if you are just sick of AAA studios pushing out rushed games to appease shareholders, or just whatever else you want to talk about. And come join my Discord too if you want to discuss games further. Links to all those things are in the description. And also be sure to subscribe for future gaming content. And lastly, if you're still here, then thanks for watching to the end, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.